Hey everyone, I'm Kajaya and welcome to my channel and welcome to my Planets through the 8th House series. This is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I wanted to get a personal account for a long time. I wanted to get a personal account of people with certain planets in the 8th house and see if those common 8th house things really did play out for them. Traditionally in astrology, the eighth house is the house of other people's money, death, regeneration, sudden ups and downs, taxes, and secrets. And I wanted to know how did that affect each planet on a personal level. So here I am with these interviews. Um, I will be doing each planet, including Chiron and Lilith. So please, stay tuned, subscribe, comment, and enjoy the show. Thank you. Hey everybody, it's me again with the second installment of my 8th house interviews. Um, I'm here with a very interesting guest. Her name is Angel. Tell everyone your sun, moon, and rising.
Well, I'm a 2 degrees Sag Sun. I am a Scorpio rising, 11 degrees. And my moon is at 1 degree in Cancer in the eighth.
In the 8th
All
house.
by itself.
Would you say?
And it's all by itself.
Just all on its lonesome. That must be real painful.
I think anything in the eighth house can be a little painful.
Yeah, it takes
Yeah.
some getting used to. So
It's
oh, go ahead. What were
definitely
you gonna say?
it's definitely an intense energy, especially having the moon there. But I've seen your chart too, so I know you've got quite a bit as well.
Mm. That's I'm being interviewed for Mars in the eighth house video. I'm dreading it. I'm just hoping I can keep it not so trashy. Like,
Oh, you'll do fine.
but in astrology, everyone, the moon represents your deepest personal needs. It's your unconscious mind. What you need to feel, the moon can show you what you need to feel a sense of security. It's the feminine energy in everyone, and it's also can represent your mother.
Mhm.
So, are you ready for these questions?
I'm ready. Absolutely. Fire
Okay,
away.
question number one. How would you say your emotions differ from someone with a moon in Scorpio? Would you say your emotions are more intense, better intuition, higher sensitivity?
Definitely high sensitivity, very intuitive. As a matter of fact, when I was a young child, I got into trouble quite a bit because I let that get the best of me. And what I mean by that is I used to sort of call people out on certain things where they were not a very deep person and totally fake, and I just knew from a very early age. That might be a little my Scorpio rising too, where I'm just
Also,
like,
that Sag sun.
yeah, yeah. But I noticed early on that people didn't like that kind of depth. They were really scared of that. So I started to sort of introvert myself a little bit more. And for a long time, I think I was sort of afraid of that intensity that I had. Didn't quite understand why I was so much more just deep, and I had so many more questions. And I think I started to relate to a lot of teachers that were much older, and they saw something in me where I was asking a lot of deep questions, and they were actually really interested to give me the answers, where a lot of kids my age were not at all interested in anything that I was interested in.
Is that one of the
So
things? Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, is that one of the things that you think brought you to astrology?
I started getting into astrology about a year ago. So, and I absolutely fell in love. I mean, this is just right exactly where I needed to be.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I wish I had had all of this information when I first became a mom. This would have been like a guide even to raise kids. To look at my kids' charts would have been amazing. I have one child, my oldest one is 15, and she is a powerhouse of energy. And of course, I think we're jumping ahead a little bit because I saw
Oh no,
something.
just go, just talk.
Um,
We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it.
well, you had asked a question later on about how I forget the way that you worded it, but something about like if I, could give advice to other parents out there with children with
We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there.
it's a little bit where I was going to go with that, but it's definitely. I'll get back to your original question. Sorry, it's Scorpio differs in the fact that it's like my daughter has a Scorpio moon placement, and she is, wow, to sum it up in just a few words, is kind of she's deep, she's intense, and she doesn't care how she hurts people. Whereas where my moon is in Cancer in the eighth house, I feel everybody's everything. So the hard part for me has always been able to figure out how to empathize with people instead of sympathizing with people. That's been a huge struggle, which astrology has greatly helped me with over the last year.
So
So
you would say a moon in the eighth house person would be more sympathetic to others' needs and not just totally disregard them in the way a Scorpio moon would, or try to see the other person's
yeah,
point
I
of view.
think I think I mean, just having the eighth house placement makes it that way, but I think mine goes even further where it's in Cancer, and
Hmm.
Cancer is just, I mean, that's the home. So for the moon, so it's a very nurturing position. So of course I want to nurture other people, but I also want to feel that in return. So when I start to feel things that are very intense and deep, and then I'm not getting that back in return, well, then I start to go a little bit more introverted, where I start to get really down on myself about why I feel all of this. I actually get to a point sometimes where I really hate the fact that
That
I
you're
feel
feeling.
this much all the time.
It
It's
starts to get a little annoying after a while, huh?
it's definitely annoying after a while. Yes.
All right,
But I'm a
question.
work in progress. I'm
Aren't we all? My favorite quote is everyone's scheduled to evolve when they do.
Yeah,
We're all
absolutely.
on our own little time frame of when we're going to evolve.
Right.
But question number two, would you consider yourself an empath? Do you find yourself always picking up on the emotions of others, or just like having emotions that are strange to you?
I don't think I have any emotions that have ever been strange to me. However, I do feel everything. Everybody's everything. I don't know if it's just eighth house moon placement or if that has to do with some of the other aspects that I have in my astrology, but just being in somebody's presence, I can actually almost read their minds. And it kind of freaks them out. It's kind of fun a little bit, especially if I don't know somebody and if there's just a quiet moment and I just kind of give them a look like I know you want to talk and I'm going to draw it out of you. And they just, it's like word vomit, it just comes rolling right out of them. And I love that. I love the honesty. I love when people are true. So, and I find it's very beneficial to both of us because not only do I get to give some sort of counseling advice, which I love to do, but it also makes them feel better. And sometimes when they look like they were on the verge of tears a minute ago, and now they're actually smiling and they feel a little bit more upbeat, which I feel like, you know what, maybe I did my good deed for the day. So it's kind of fun.
The creep factor is always good.
Yes, yes, definitely.
All right, question number three. Do you find it difficult to fully give yourself to someone on an emotional level?
Yes.
You took a
I would
deep breath when you
say
said that. You're like, ah.
I know, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to answer that one because again, I think I have some other issues as far as being Scorpio rising, which everybody's going to have to watch that video that you did because that with Carolyn, that was just hilarious. I was actually laughing throughout that whole thing. But getting back to your question, Yeah, I think it is difficult for me, especially because I learned at a young age that these intense, deep emotions are not felt by everybody. And so there's a big part of me that wants to be received by other people as well. And I always am afraid of what people will think. They've just been scared off by my intensity throughout the years. So I've sort of learned to tame that demon a little bit.
Sort of
Um,
hold that energy back.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, so the eighth house is, associated with the occult and supernaturals. And supernatural. Supernatural? Have you ever had a supernatural experience?
It is so funny that you would ask me this because last week I was having a conversation with my daughter and a friend, and it was about something that happened to me almost 11 years ago, but it's just stuck with me ever since.
Hmm.
So, quick story behind it is I was pregnant with my third one, and literally when I woke up, I am an absolute vivid dreamer. I've been like that my whole life. I ended up having this nightmare, and wow, I've actually only told this to literally those two people. So sorry, forgive me.
No doubt to everyone who's about to watch it.
I know exactly. I'm like, here, I'm just blurting it all out. I had this nightmare, and at the time I had no idea what it even represented. I just thought my hormones are crazy. I'm a pregnant lady, and here I'm about to go into labor and have my third one, so I've got all kinds of crazy thoughts. I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd had this awful nightmare about this. Actually, she was a beautiful woman, but I just remember the dark, long, flowing hair. She's just sort of looked like she was floating above me, but she had her eyes absolutely glued on me, and she wanted to take something from me. And of course, at the time, I had no idea what. I'm like, what movie did I just watch that would have conjured up some thought like that? Um, she locked her eyes on mine and got closer and closer to my face, and I woke up and I had screamed something out. I don't even know what I said, but I screamed something, and I woke up and I was actually trying to push myself deeper into the couch that I was laying on to get away from her. And of course I woke up and I was in active labor. Well, after I told my doctor and my friend this story just last week, literally, um, my daughter was like, "Mom, you should do your chart again, except go back to the night that Caden was born and find out what was going on in your chart." And I was like, I don't know why I didn't think of that. So of course I did it, and I have 17 aspects with Lilith right on top of my moon. So, I mean, that's probably a story all in itself, and I'm sure there's a whole lot of questions that you
That
might
is
be having there.
crazy.
But again, it's extremely creepy. But I just feel like there's something to it. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. It was literally just a thought of hers a week ago. Mom, you should check out your chart, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, why did this dream stick with me for so long? But I think there is something to that. So,
I'd love to hear about your further investigation on that.
well, I have let's see, my rising sign is 11 degrees Scorpio, so Scorpio is still actually in my 12th house for a little bit. So that's where I have Venus conjunct Lilith conjunct Cupido. So, and I've got a whole bunch of other planets right there too within 12th and first house. So there's a ton of energy right there. So, yeah, I definitely need to do a little bit more research with Lilith, but that's going to be a big one for me, I think.
All right. So,
Interesting.
question number 5. Describe your emotional nature.
My emotional nature overall, I do not like mundane bullshit talk. I can't do it. It's actually painful for me to listen to. I have a friend a very good friend of mine, as a matter of fact, she has a very different type of astrology than I have.
Hmm.
And I love her to pieces, but she just loves to talk, 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 talk about anything and everything all day long. And I'm kind of like, can we just do our work? And if you want to talk about something really interesting, I'm all up for that. But I'm not one of those like, hey, how's your day going?
Just like cheesy
We just
surface
have to
level
have that.
conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I like to be social, but only for, so long. I like to have
Yes.
real, actual conversations. So,
All right. So question number 6, how would you describe your relationship with your mother as it relates to the eighth house?
with my mother and I have a very good relationship now. I think my mother suffered from her own neglect and insecurity issues while I was growing up. So I was basically the house counselor, even at a very early age. I have an older brother who I used to babysit and watch over, even though he's older. Um, I'm sure that has something to do with the maturity level too, but my mother was sort of we're both Sagittarius sun signs, but she is a later degree Sag, and I'm an early degree Sag, so two very different types of Sagittarius for one. But I think she suffers from a lot of her own insecurities. And at an early age, I do remember her coming to me on several occasions telling me, wow, you are wise beyond your years. And I think some of that might actually have a little bit to do with the fact that I've got like Saturn and Jupiter in my 11th. So I kind of gravitate to the older, it's more of a karmic type thing.
Yeah. Jupiter in the 11th over here. Yeah, I know. Old
Yeah,
people.
got
Old,
that.
one of my friends calls me a old lady hag. She goes, you know how you have like we can't say the F word, but F hag.
Yeah,
She said you're an old lady hag.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I do get, I understand. But question number 7. In a woman's chart, and I've also seen this with men, they're attracted to people with their moon sign qualities or the same sign as their moon sign. So do you find yourself attracted to Scorpio-like men or get into really intense relationships?
Um, I find more often than not, I get drawn into people who actually need me more than I need them. I
Mm.
know that sounds a little shitty, but I think it's true. I think I'm actually drawn to chaos, or chaos is drawn to me, one or the other. I'm not sure. But I love to be able to help people because I really do care that much. So, and then I think Cancer too. Cancer is one of those, like, it really doesn't, you don't want to let go. Like when you're finally comfortable with somebody and you opened up a little bit, that's a little bit of my rising sign too, I think, in there. But, where I only have a small handful of, oops, did I lose you?
Oh, you just keep going. Just keep going.
I think my Cancer sign just sort of makes me want to stick around for the long haul. Whether it's good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. I'm in it to win it. I've been with my husband for 17 years, so it's been a while.
It's been a
But
journey.
it's we've learned a ton from one another for sure. Definite soulmate, karmic connection. Definitely.
All right, so question number 8. What eighth house themes played out in your childhood?
Well, I think it goes back to the counselor role,
Mhm.
where I was sort of everybody's friend psychiatrist. I dated no one, but I was the go-to person when everybody was having breakups and shakeups, and it was that kind of theme. I think pretty much growing up. I was also surrounded by a lot of family who had a lot of personal issues. I come from a very dysfunctional family. Now I know a lot of people come from some dysfunction for sure, but and it's one of those things that I laugh about now, but when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with my family?
Get me the hell out of here.
Exactly. I'm like, I do not belong here. These people are crazy. Yeah, so I was a counselor for pretty much everybody, where I'm not even sure how old I was when I noticed that I'm kind of like the go-to person for everybody that wants to talk about something, which I was fine with because, in the same regard, I actually really enjoy having deep conversations like that. But I was also surrounded by a ton of death when I was young. I remember going to my first funeral that I actually remember, and I was 7 years old, and actually touched the body. And I remember everything about it. And I've been to a ton more since then. I think my family's pretty much half died off by now, so we don't have such crazy parties anymore. But yeah, so it was definitely a childhood theme to be the counselor for everybody.
Wow. Well, that rolls right into the ninth
Yeah.
question about how do you feel about death? Like, what's your view on it? How do you feel about it?
I was never scared of death. I can honestly say the when I my uncle had died, he was only 23 years old and unfortunately committed suicide. Um, we've got several of those in the family, and we've got lots of other craziness, murders, and all kinds of stuff. You name it, we probably have it. Um, I remember my dad asking me if I wanted to go to the funeral, and I asked him lots of questions of what it would be like and what to expect and that sort of thing. And for the first time, I think my dad was actually honest with me because I hadn't asked deep questions, especially to my dad. My dad was he traveled around a lot. He was this military guy, so I didn't have a great connection with my dad when I was really little, but when he was there, we made it work. He's a very bold personality to have to deal with, but when I started to ask the real hard questions, he was there and willing to answer. So I ended up going to my first funeral early on in life, and it's an experience that I never forgot. But I was never scared of it.
Okay. Question number 10. Have you ever had self-destructive behavior?
Who hasn't, right? Especially Scorpio writings. I'm gonna have to
Uh,
just plug in my phone. Um, well, yes, I have. I think that it's been an overall theme in my family, especially that, um, like I said, suicide, murder, craziness. It's been a theme. So to have Cancer in the eighth house
mm,
with my moon, it's just a placement that you feel everybody's everything all the time, and it's to the nth degree intense. So to say I've never had thoughts like that, I would be lying through my teeth.
mm,
Um, I'm certainly not proud of that, but I think that there's good things and bad things about being in a place like that where you can be. Now, this is where you learn to be empathetic rather than sympathetic because you've been there and done that. You know what it feels like. So when other people that I'm around have gone through similar situations, I actually have real counsel, real advice for them, which I'm actually pretty grateful for. So, so it's
that's
not all
good.
bad.
Question number 11. In what way does your eighth house moon affect your personal and public relationships, i.e., friends, family, lovers? What are some of the good things, but also the challenging things?
The challenging things is that I naturally am not an open person. So doing this interview, you're opening up a whole can of worms for me. But
That's the eighth house in general, just a can
I
of
know,
worms.
right? Isn't it? It totally is. Um, like I said, as far as the answer to the last question, I think it kind of relates, where it's a good thing and bad thing both at the same time. It's something that when you finally surrender to the amount of intensity that energy represents, um, it flows a little bit more smooth. I think water signs in general have a tough time because they're just so spread out everywhere, but there's other aspects in my chart that help to ground that. So when I start to, I guess the one thing that I really hate about the eighth house placement for the moon is the fact that when I lose it bad. And it does take a lot to get me to that point, but when I lose it, for sure, like, it is the ugly cry. I will actually go sit in a closet and, like, head down on the floor, just leave me alone. I cannot do this. And it's a little scary. I mean, that's not a good place for anybody to be. But again, it's when I'm in positions like that that it allows me to help other people when I'm finally not feeling that anymore. So, and I will say it's a quick turnaround. I think water signs in general tend to be a little bit moodier, so things come and go a little quicker than some of the other signs. But so that's helpful.
Okay. Question number 12. Have you ever found yourself emotionally dependent on sex or money, or find that there's a power struggle with it?
Um,
Oh God, the laugh.
that's a two-part question. That's funny. No, I can honestly say, see, I have my Mars in Capricorn in the third.
Hmm.
So although I have a lot of intense energy spread out throughout, I think that Mars in Capricorn actually helps to ground me a little bit. It's a very disciplined position.
Hmm.
So, and also having Saturn in the 11th house is sort of another comfort where it's exalted there. So that's another way that it helps to balance out that energy a little bit. So I don't think I'm real dependent on anybody except myself. I mean, I've got my son is in the first house, so it's a little bit of a ego thing, but I'm very self-reliant in that regard. So everything comes second to taking care of myself, if that helps.
Spoken like a true fire sign. Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
question number 13. Do you find it difficult to let go of past emotions?
Yes, I think when something scars me deep, it's there for life. But it's also one of those things where it's like getting a tattoo, right? Like, it's going to be there for the long haul. Um, but it's painful, but it's healing in the same regard. And it's like that's where expansion comes in, is when you are faced with these things that hurt you deeply and scar you, but it serves a purpose for later down the road. These things that I went through when I was a young child that, I thought at the time these were scarring and so damaging, and my life is going to be, just chaotic like the rest of my family. Um, I mean, of course, I was determined to not let that happen because they were really crazy. But I think that all of that served a purpose, because even when you're going through something and it seems super intense, we don't always understand it in the moment, but later on down the road, somebody's going to need some bit of information or advice that we have, and it might be the difference between whether or not someone survives what they're going through or not. And that is it's a very hefty task to have to get through. But being strong for myself has benefited so many other people. So again, I mean, I've said this before, but it's sort of a love-hate relationship having that placement. It's a
So,
lot of responsibility for sure.
so a lot of emotional retrospective, being emotionally retrospective, like just
Yeah,
going back and just looking at those old emotions or those old things that happened to you and trying to gain new perspective on them.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
So question number 14, how long does it take you to let go of someone you have emotionally attached yourself to? Even though it's difficult, but once you've attached and they sort of leave your life, how long does it take you to unstick them?
A long time, probably forever. I think I think that's part of the rising sign too, though, is that, Scorpio rising has this very small, I mean, lots of friends, but nobody that's, it's just such a small circle of people that you really trust and who you really let in.
Who?
And
What?
for
What?
the
What's
few
that?
times that I have let, well, for the people that I've let in to really understand who I am on a very personal, soulful level, I've only been hurt a couple of times by people in that position. So scars like that will absolutely last a lifetime. There's no doubt about that. But again, like I said in the last question, it's one of those that'll be with me forever, but it also serves a purpose. There was something that I either needed to learn or something that somebody else may have needed to learn throughout their journey. I don't think that anything is ever a mistake. Um, there's something to be gained from both parties, whether it's something I've learned, something they've learned. Either way, we've both grown from it. I remember things from when I was a young child that, I don't even understand why I still carry some of these things with me, to be honest, but um, key phrases people said, or certain dreams that I had, um, they all, I don't know why I remember so much stuff. It's actually kind of crazy. That's a good question. I think I could talk forever about that one.
All right, okay. So question number 15. I think this is a good one. Well, I think they're all good because I came up with them, but anyways,
Yeah.
but what would you say a moon in the eighth house person emotionally needs from a lover or someone close to them?
Oh my God. Depth, room to breathe, room to grow, room to expand their minds. Because it's one of those when I can remember early on when I started asking questions, my dad would actually give me answers that my mother thought I was too young to understand. So she would quickly dismiss it as, you know, like you're just too young. You shouldn't be asking questions like that. That's inappropriate. And I started to retract a little bit, like, wow, what's wrong with me? Why do I think like this? And this isn't right. Everybody's telling me that this is wrong to feel this intensity, and I shouldn't, but I didn't know how to not feel that, where I feel everything. So it's, again, another good question, Kajaya. I love it. Seriously.
So you'd say they need, just space to grow. Also, would you say understanding?
Understanding is absolutely huge. I mean, to have a young child that you are trying to raise, I mean, every parent out there is, that's ever had the best intentions for their child, and we usually all do. You have this general, I don't know, are you a parent? I don't even know. I should know.
No, no, not yet.
Okay. Haven't walked that plank, right?
No, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
We all, I think, tend to believe, okay, this is the type of parent that I'm going to be, because this is what I lacked, when I was a child. I wish my parents had, done this with me or said this to me, or, you know, woulda, shoulda, coulda. It's one of those, So I said, someday when I'm a parent, this is how I'm going to do it. And they come out with different plans and different astrology of their own. And again, I wish astrology had been a part of my life several years ago, because this would have been extremely beneficial. Um, but I think just having that good understanding and letting the children literally be who they are meant to be. If they're asking questions, there's clearly a reason why they need to know. They're genuinely enthusiastic about learning. So, I mean, of course, you'd have to use discernment on, what kind of details you go into with telling them. But if they're asking the questions, they deserve an answer. They're curious. So understanding is definitely a huge one.
Okay. Um, Question number 16. Which one is better, physical gratification or emotional gratification? Which one is highest ranked and why?
Depends on what mood I'm in, right?
That's for everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Sometimes they're
Exactly.
sometimes they're neck and neck with each other.
Yeah, if it's a Friday night, Saturday night,
Hmm.
yeah,
Going out
exactly.
on the town.
Exactly. A couple of drinks, yeah, my mood starts to change a little bit. Exactly. Getting my dance on. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
if I'm gonna answer honestly, I would say emotionally. I think everything, especially for the placement that I have, Moon in the eighth in Cancer is just that's the nurturing home. It's like that's my number one priority for having that placement is I want to feel comforted and I want to be able to comfort and nurture others as well. So definitely emotional is first on my list, unless it's Friday night.
All right, so question number 18. Oh, question number 17, sorry. Would you consider your moon in the eighth house a blessing or a curse? Which one and why?
Oh, definitely both at the same time. It's one of those the older you get, the wiser you become, hopefully, if you're going in the right direction. Um, when I was a child, I hated it. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why I was so different from everybody else. Why are all these kids around me enjoying their lives and having so much fun and they're so carefree? And
I'm over here with these feelings.
yeah, and I was like, why am I so burdened and worrisome all the time about all of these things? Like I can never just relax and enjoy, the freedom that, comes with being a child and not having the intense responsibilities that adults have. I kind of envied that a little bit in people. So I did hate it when I was a child, but now that I'm older, I also find that, the kids that I grew up with are now just getting married. They're now just starting to have children and buy houses. And for me, I'm like, I've been there, done that. I've been done for a long time, and so I guess it put me a little bit ahead of the curb, maybe. Um, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm, I don't know. I don't know. It's a blessing, I think, more than a curse. I would say that for sure. Because like I said few questions back, we were talking about some in-depth things about being able to help other people, later on, some of the things that happened earlier in my life, some of those life experiences that I thought were pretty tragic, that later down the road they ended up serving a great purpose. Things like that, I'm actually in those moments very grateful for having this particular placement, so I could be beneficial to somebody else. So
So
that's good.
it's like with time and with age, it just gets better.
Yes, yes, sure.
Question number 18. What advice would you give other people slash young people with their moon in the eighth house? Like if they don't know how to handle this energy, what advice would you give them?
Don't repress it, that's for sure. Um, you know, People ask me all the time, what's the best sign to be? What's the worst sign to be? What's the best placements? And, what would you change about your chart if you could change anything? And it's fun to think about, but at the same time, my answer stays the same. And the simple answer is this. We all have all of this somewhere in our charts. Now, there are certainly some aspects that are much easier to live with than other people. Some people have some significantly more difficult aspects to live with, which they may take a lifetime in trying to, um, move themselves into a positive frame of mind. But this particular placement, I would give my best advice is just to not repress it. If you're a deep digger, be a deep digger. You have to learn to. I say this to a lot of my clients, where I'll tell them if you could stand naked in front of a mirror and really look at yourself from every single angle and not deny anything about who you actually are, how long would it take for you to accept yourself? You know, when you get to a point where you can finally accept yourself for who you really are and what gifts you were given. I mean, I'd love to be J-Lo, but guess what? I wasn't born with all that. So that's not really working out for me. I love to sing. Not many people like to listen. So, um, so I mean, there's things that I wish I could change about my chart, but again, it's one of those like I have some really powerful positions in my chart, and I have grown to love that. I think when you accept yourself and accept all the energies that you were given, again, none of us come out perfect. We all have things that, you know, we have to work on. Some people have a ton of trines in their chart and they're like, oh yeah, they're so lucky. They have all these trines. Well, you know what? Sometimes that makes people really lazy. So I'm a hard worker and I don't mind rolling up my sleeves. You know, I think that there's something to be taken from all of these different things. We're here to learn from one another. I mean, that's what the age of Aquarian is all about, right? We're all growing to that one, you know, humanitarian level. So I think we can all learn quite a bit from each other. But I do love this placement.
Good. All right, now, so I think this is the question you've been waiting for. What advice would you give to parents with children with their moon in the eighth house? I know you sort of answered this, like bits and pieces here and there, but you
Yeah,
hear
the
more.
the understanding is definitely huge. Back to my, you know, when I first was having kids and I thought I was going to be this, you know, great parent and
Hmm.
um, you know, my daughter came out with this very bold personality, and everything that I did that I thought was the right thing, she went toe to toe with me on from a very early age. And I was sort of in that frame of mind of I've got to take control. I'm the parent here. I need to do this. And I started to conform to her a little bit more. And again, I wish that astrology had been a part of my life years ago because this could have actually saved us a lot of agony, I think. But I think that understanding is intense. I mean, you have to keep children safe. You can't let them just do whatever they're going to do. You know, I mean, you're their wise elder. You need to give them proper counsel, and you need to keep them safe. Um, but my boundaries, certainly for my own kids, have grown in different directions now. They are different boundaries than what I ever expected that I would have for my kids. Um, I think really getting to know them, asking a lot of questions. You know, when people have, like, you'll get to this point too, Kajai, when you have kids, you know, you've got a loaded eighth house, so you're going to feel all of this too. And your kids will ask you all of these same questions. And I wonder if I asked you some of these questions now, and then 10 years later, when you have kids and they start asking you these questions, how would you answer these same questions? They will be different. I can almost guarantee that, as scary as that might sound. So,
Well, that's 10 years
yeah,
down the
things like
line. Let's not think about such horrible things like that right now. So understanding your children.
absolutely, absolutely. Making them feel comforted and knowing that, like I say to my daughter all the time, I said, you can think whatever you want, you can feel whatever you want, but what you say and what you do has a direct effect on other people. So just having that quick moment where she pauses to think before she speaks, you know, is another good one. So again, you know, that understanding, having lots of deep conversations with her, things like that. You know, I mean, we have very different views on a lot of things. She has a Scorpio moon placement in the ninth, and we differ quite a bit, as a matter of fact, on a lot of things. But again, just knowing where I stand, knowing where she stands, coming together and sort of being a little bit flexible. You know, I mean, obviously Scorpio is a fixed sign, but you know, so that's got a little bit of a hold on me, I think. But just trying to be as flexible as possible, understanding. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so for my wild card, I'm going to throw three words out to you, and I want you to pick one that best describes or fits with Moon in the eighth house and tell me why. Okay?
Okay.
First word is regeneration, battle with life, and enlightens.
Hmm. I would probably have to say regeneration. Um, my answer to that is simple. Obviously, it's Scorpio is the natural ruler of the eighth house. Um, Sort of back to some of the beginning questions when we were talking about scarring and carrying those scars. For every time I've ever been wounded, I've also healed. So regeneration is I think that's definitely a perfect word to sum it up, as a matter of fact. This particular placement is extremely intense. It's very intuitive. The fact that I feel everybody's everything comes with an intense amount of responsibility. Um, but through every time I've ever been hurt, or everybody, has ever been hurt around me, and I've accepted all of those feelings, I've always been able to regenerate myself to a better, higher level. And I think that's rubbed off on quite a few people around me as well. So regeneration for sure.
That's good. What do you do for work? Are you a counselor?
I'm a small business owner, as a matter of fact. I've had a commercial residential cleaning company for the last 13 years. Um, so I'm my own boss, which is absolutely perfect because I can't fire myself for ever being late. I give myself a raise whenever I want. Pretty nice.
That's the American dream right there. We are all aspiring to be our own bosses.
Exactly. Yeah, and a year ago, or maybe a little over a year ago now, I started. I was reading my horoscope one day and was so irritated, at the fact that it was always wrong. I'm like, how do people come up with this bullshit? It was so annoying. So I'm like, how do they come up with this stuff? I'm like, there is a way to figure this out, and I am not a stupid person. I'm gonna figure this out. So I started digging and uncovering all this information. It was like scratching my head, like, wow, actually kind of makes a lot of sense. So again, it's one of those. I'm actually a work in progress as far as becoming an astrologer. So I've been reading a lot of charts and trying to help people in that regard. Early on, I thought that I wanted to be some sort of a psychologist, counselor, some sort of spiritual healer. I've sort of dabbled in a lot of those different things, but I don't know. We'll see in the next 5 years where I'm at. Who knows?
Do you think you'll watch this video in like 5 years and come back and with like different answers or different point of view?
Probably, probably.
Well,
Yes,
that'll be part two.
exactly. Every time I watch a new video, a new astrologer's take on, Moon in the eighth house or whatever we're watching for the day, um, they always have really good insight, some little tidbit of information that I never quite thought of in that way before.
Mhm.
So again, I have some favorite astrologers that I love watching, and then watching the hangouts, like some of the hangouts that you've done before, like Alyssa Sharp. I love watching her. I think she's a riot. Um, I think that there's so many people that have a very unique way of both understanding and interpreting things and delivering that information to others. So what works for one person isn't going to work for another, but what works for somebody else is going to touch somebody else in a different way. So I think if we all unite in that way where we're doing these kind of hangouts, I think the right information will get across to the people who really do need to hear it at the right time.
I say we all do the same thing. We just have like different brands. There's many different types of
Exactly.
cereal.
Right. There's a
I
whole
think
aisle.
huh?
There's a whole aisle.
Oh, yes, there's an entire owl. But thank you for coming on and doing this with me. Is there anything else you want to throw in there before we sign off?
I think we covered quite a few bases. I'm sure that there's something that I'm missing that I wanted to say that I probably didn't think of right in the moment, but that'll be
She'll
part two, like
comment
you
it.
said.
She'll comment below what she forgot.
Exactly.
All right,
Exactly.
well,
So it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Kajaya.
thank you for doing this. Thank you everyone for watching. Please comment below if you have your moon in the eighth house. Please comment below. Can I put your link, your Facebook link below the video?
Absolutely.
All right, well, her link will be in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and we're signing off now. This was a great, all of the hangouts I've done were great, but I'm like, this was great. This was brilliant. Thank
Awesome.
you.
So fun. Thanks, Kajaya.
Bye.
Bye.